Seyi grew up in a small town where money was always a problem, and every month his parents struggled to pay rent, buy food and keep the lights on, and as a child he watched them work from morning till night yet still worry about tomorrow, and this made him think deeply about life, and he quietly promised himself that one day he would change his story and create a different future. And as he grew older he became more aware of how money controlled many aspects of life and how lack of it could limit dreams and opportunities, and when he finished school he was full of hope, but reality hit him hard because jobs were scarce and competition was high, and rejection became his daily experience, and each rejection slowly chipped away at his confidence, and he began to doubt himself and his abilities. And during this time he made many mistakes by borrowing money to survive, spending carelessly to impress others, and chasing temporary pleasure to escape his pain, and without realizing it he fell into debt and frustration, and there were nights he lay awake staring at the ceiling wondering how his life had turned out this way, and he felt ashamed to ask for help and embarrassed to talk about his struggles, and while his friends seemed to move forward he felt stuck in one place, and this loneliness weighed heavily on his heart. And one quiet evening after another disappointing day he sat alone and reflected deeply on his life, and he realized that no one was coming to save him, and that if he did not change nothing would change. And this realization was painful but powerful, and it sparked a fire inside him, and he decided that no matter how long it took he would rebuild his life and start again from the ground up. And he began by tracking every expense and cutting off anything that was not necessary and learning to live with less. And at first it was very hard because he was used to comfort and small pleasures, but he reminded himself that sacrifice today would create freedom tomorrow, and slowly he became disciplined and consistent, and even small savings began to give him hope and confidence, and he started spending his free time learning about money, reading books, watching videos and listening to people who had risen from nothing, and their stories inspired him and taught him that wealth was not about luck but about mindset, patience and persistence. And with this new understanding he began to see opportunities where he once saw obstacles, and after some time he gathered the courage to start a small business with the little money he had saved, and it was not glamorous and it was not easy, and many people did not take him seriously and some even laughed at his small beginnings, but he did not allow their opinions to stop him, and he showed up every day with dedication and integrity, and slowly customers began to trust him and his business began to grow, and with each sale his confidence increased, and with each profit he reinvested and refused to waste money on unnecessary things. And there were days when he felt tired and discouraged, but he remembered why he started and pushed through, and he learned from his mistakes, adjusted his strategies and kept improving, and over time his debts began to disappear and his income became stable and his life started to change. And he did not stop learning because he understood that growth never ends, and he studied investing, saving and building multiple streams of income, and he remained patient and focused even when progress was slow, and instead of giving up he stayed consistent, and this consistency became his greatest strength. And as his life improved he did not forget his past, and he began teaching others what he had learned, encouraging young people to take control of their finances and believe in themselves, and people started to look up to him and respect his journey, and his story became a source of motivation for many who felt lost and hopeless. And years later Seyi had built a life of stability, peace and purpose, and he could support his family, help others and live without constant fear. And when he looked back he realized that the biggest transformation was not money but his mindset, because once he changed how he thought his life followed, and his journey became proof that no matter where you start, no matter how difficult your situation is, with discipline, focus, learning, patience and persistence you can rise, rebuild and create a life of freedom, success and meaning. And this is the power of taking responsibility for your life and refusing to give up on your dreams. Seyi refused to give up on his dream even though life had beaten him down many times and he had faced rejection and failure and debt and disappointment, and he knew that quitting would mean living the same struggle forever, and so he made a decision that no matter how hard it got he would keep moving forward. And he began by examining every part of his life, every habit, every choice, every expense, and he realized that change had to start with him, and so he created a plan, a vision for his future, and every morning he reminded himself of that vision, and no matter how small the step he took he moved closer to it, and he learned to embrace discipline and patience and to value effort over instant pleasure. And when he was tired and frustrated he would remind himself that every setback was a lesson and every failure was a teacher, and he began to see obstacles not as walls but as challenges to overcome, and he used his failures as fuel to work harder and smarter, and he understood that persistence and consistency mattered more than luck or talent, and he committed himself to daily growth and learning, and he spent hours studying successful people, reading books about business, finance and personal development, and listening to stories of people who had risen from nothing, and he applied what he learned and experimented and tested, and even when results were slow he did not quit, and he started small by selling items to neighbors and friends, and he faced ridicule from people who did not believe in him, but he ignored them and kept showing up every day with focus and integrity, and slowly his small efforts began to compound into noticeable results, and he reinvested every profit he earned into his business and avoided wasting money on fleeting pleasures, and he learned to manage his time, his money and his energy wisely. And as his business grew, he faced new challenges, competition, market changes and difficult clients, but he remained adaptable and resilient, and he continued learning and improving every day. And he also learned the importance of patience, because real growth never comes overnight, and he understood that true success is built on small, consistent steps repeated every day without giving in to fear or doubt. And as months turned into years, Seyi began to achieve milestones.